excited to have everybody here today. We have a great panel. I am Christy Larson. I am the Director of Employer Partnerships at Prime Digital Academy. I run the career development, but also work with our community partners on mentorship and guest speaker and hiring the fantastic grads that come out of our programs. We run both a full stack software engineering program and a user experience design program. So we have folks from both of those that are currently placed in awesome opportunities post-Prime. So we're going to kind of kick it off with introductions, and I am going to technical difficulties, stop sharing my screen. So hopefully you will be able to see all of their lovely faces over mine. So we have a great order. We've practiced, so we are ready to go. So if RN, you want to kick us off with introductions, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I'm not sure what practice you're talking about. Sorry for calling you out on that, but I wasn't a part of that. So if I screw everything up, you can blame me. I'm RN, she, her pronouns. I'm a full stack developer at Media Junction, and we're hiring like a ton of positions right now. You can go to mediajunction.com/join-our-team and check them out. Happy to be here. Wait, what did I do before, right? Sorry, I'm forgetting things. Yes, before I became a software developer, I worked in group homes and halfway houses. I worked at mall retail stores. Yeah, nothing super technical. It was very person-centered stuff. Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. I think I'm next. Hi, everyone. My name is Ayan Dahed, and I am a human-centered designer, and I'm at Software for Good. So before this, well, I still am a writer and community organizer. And so before Prime and UX, I was in the nonprofit world, doing different things around civic engagement, civil liberties, and it was a nice, I would say maybe not a transition, but very complementary to the work that I'm invested in exploring and doing now around privacy, accessibility, and UX in general. So really happy to be here. Thanks all for coming. And thanks for the opportunity, Christy.
So I think I'm next. My name is Jaden. I use she, her, they, them pronouns. I currently am a junior data scientist and also a software engineer at Dispatch-It, which is a business-to-business delivery company. Prior to this, I was also similar to, I think, a lot of people so far doing people-centered work. I most recently was a case manager in a level 1 trauma center. And before that, I was working with youth with disabilities. Additionally, I'm also the chair of the board of our equity, inclusion, and diversity. So that's other work that I did prior to this that I actually brought with me when I went into tech.
Great, I can go next. Chrissy, thanks for the opportunity. Well, my name is Peter. My pronouns are he and him, and my current position is actually associate software engineer at Avanti. But before this, I was actually a chemist for 2 years. I graduated from the U of M with a 4-year degree in biochemistry. Turns out now I'm using that just to, make drinks on the side. But yeah, essentially that's my my background. I didn't have any technical backgrounds whatsoever before Prime and before enrolling at Prime Digital Academy. And then ever since then, I've been working as associate software engineer for nearly 2 years now. So essentially my background.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Roxy Clem, and I am a UX researcher at Best Buy. I've been there since the beginning of 2019, so almost 3 years now. And before I went to Prime, I was in the service industry, being a server and a manager, and I think I learned a lot about people, interacting with them at their tables and everything. So yeah, thank you, Christy, for having me.
Love it. Thank you all for being here. So we want this to be engaging with you all as audience members. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. You can also share your audio and visual, and we can, bring you on screen, and you can ask questions that way too. But any questions that you have, I'm sure these folks would be more than happy to answer them. But my first question to kick off is, I know you all have kind of different backgrounds before you got into tech and design. What were some of those early career choices that you brought with you into the new space that you're in now? RN, do you want to start?
Yeah, I never put any thought, like literally no thought into career choices. I was just like, hey, this company sounds cool, let's work here. Or like group homes, like that sounds kind of up my alley, helping people out. Yeah, I didn't really have like any sort of plan, like, oh, I'm gonna join this company and like rise up to this position or do this type of work. But yeah, I guess as far as how I kind of used things from my past to get into tech, it was I've always had a big imagination. I really like creating things, and they weren't really career choices, but I do like music as a hobby, and that's a lot like programming. You make something out of nothing. It can make people feel things. It can be engaging, and that's sort of what I, how I found my path into tech is through that. And, how do I take the things that I like about visual arts and music and the creative process and really abstract concepts, and how do I turn them into a more realistic for me career path?
I can go next. So my background has been in community organizing and advocating for civil liberties, and a lot of the work that I've done has been pretty people-centered. So it was a very, natural, organic transition into UX. My goal and my motivations have always been to do meaningful work and to impact people in a positive way. And I think that combined with the problem solving and the creativity of UX was very interesting and appealing, and something being able to explore problem spaces and work with great people and tackle projects that I maybe wouldn't have been able to interact with before. These are things that have really kept me interested in UX, and just having, I think, a good network, a good support system, people who've encouraged me and sort of allowed me to think outside of the box in ways that I probably wouldn't have considered myself, has been really, really helpful. But yeah, I think there's so many similarities between UX and community organizing and the work that I was doing before, that it was a very healthy transition and a natural fit. So.
Jaden, how about you?
I didn't know if we were just going to keep rotating through, or if people were just going to kind of jump in and say what they wanted. I'll go. So I think that some of the career choices that sort of like helped me get into this was that all of the work that I've done throughout all of work, like my life, has always been like problem solving and like helping people manage things, or like, so people management really transferred into product management, which is like a lot of the work I do, especially now as a data scientist, because a lot of what I do for my company is like sort of trajectory work or figuring out where to go next. Data is still a blooming field in the tech field, but yeah, so like a lot of that was transferable. So when I was like, oh, I love to problem solve and I love to learn, like I am a lifelong learner. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm back in school right now prepping for a master's at MIT. So I'm just going for 2 bachelor's degrees and then a master's, and I think I will probably stop there. I think a PhD is also in my future. So like it just made sense that I would go into a career path that constantly made me, or like helped me keep learning. So technology really just aligned with who I am as a person.
Peter, do you want to chime in? Jaden, you are. Definitely no rest for the weary, right? Like, let's just keep after it, keep doing the things. I love it. Peter, how about you?
Yeah, I can connect with Jaden on that. I've always been a learner, but I feel like my career has been like predestined to be a scientist. It's not like my choice or anything. One of my siblings is a physics teacher, the other is a chemist. So naturally, I should be in a scientific field, right? But just been in the field for 2 years and seeing that I couldn't grow in that career path. I don't know about other people, but for me personally, I couldn't grow. That prevents me, or that kind of like, I sort of want to see other career paths and such. And I've always felt like my skills has been like strongest with like problem solving, researching, and analysis. So but I didn't have like any resources to explore that. Always thought that being a software engineer, you have to start really early. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a great software engineer, right? But I felt like, just curiosity paved the way for me. And so I quit my job. I enrolled in Prime Digital Academy, where it's a great environment, 6 months of grueling, coding for, 40 to 60 hours per week. And that's enough for me to pick up some of the useful skills that I can use and apply for real life, career, like real life jobs. So, but if you ask me if my previous career has prepared me for this, I felt like it does. It translated to software engineering, because one is that you have to be a learner, you have to be a problem solver, and you have to keep continually to grow. So.
All right. And then my experience, I've always been so curious about everything, like why people act the way they do, curious about human behavior, problem solving. I've always been a big learner, but never super successful in traditional school. Especially in college, I felt like kind of the goalpost for graduating was a little farther than I was willing to wait. I'm a little impatient. And so what I loved about getting into this field is that the Prime program was fast. You learned every day, you learned quick, and then you got to like display those skills in class. And also what prepared me is I was a server and a manager, and I feel like servers are like the original UX designers. They're designing an experience for their guests. They're taking feedback, so that's part of the research. There's a reason that people love to be regulars at restaurants or bars, because the bartender knows how to treat them and knows what kind of experience they like. And so I learned so much about people from that experience, and that really kind of kickstarted my interest into UX.
That's a great answer, Roxy. And I always say everybody at some point or another should experience customer service in some way, shape, or form, because I think it gets you in touch with the actual customer or the guest experience. So that's awesome. I'm curious as to what research you did before deciding that you were going to kind of shift careers or make that change, and like what went into that decision and that process of, this is something that I feel like could be a good career change for me, or really get me to the next level of where I want to go and what I want to do. So anybody can chime in. We don't have to go in order, I guess. We can anybody that wants to chime in can chime in.
I could start again. I pretty much made like a big list of all the things that I really like and all the things that I really don't like. And then from there, like I said earlier, a lot of them had to do with like creative things. So I kind of was already leaning towards something like coding or design or something. But I have a friend who went through a coding program, a few years before I embarked on that journey. And she said it completely changed her life. She was always talking about like about the experience, about, wow, I, used to make hardly any money and get treated like dirt and drive a cab at night, all hours of the night, and have people puke in it and have to clean it up. And now I get like paid by my company to like fly out to Vegas for conventions and stuff. Like, it's super cool. I get to solve puzzles all day, all these things. So I was like, dang, like I kind of want that to be my life. So yeah, she like sort of pressured me, but didn't really pressure me into looking into some of these coding programs. And it just so happened that the day I was seriously like on the computer looking up coding programs, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Prime, I think it was this either that night or the next night, they were having an open tour, and I went to it, and it just felt really cozy and nice, I guess. Like the atmosphere was great. The staff and the students that were there engaging with us were all great. So yeah, it just felt great. And now I'm a literal coding professional. So awesome.
Going to Vegas anytime soon?
Maybe. I don't know.
I can jump in. So I was a restaurant manager before I went into UX. And so I took a step back and looked at like what the best case scenario was for my career path at that point. And being a restaurant GM is kind of the highest you can get without like a lot more experience by like owning a restaurant or being an operations manager with a huge chain. And so I thought about like where I would be in 10 years, and I thought I would still be very tired and with not a lot of other opportunities. I also looked at what the salary ranges were for the jobs I was interested in UX. That was a huge incentive. And also just talking to people in the field and seeing their experiences. Do they like their job? And most of the responses I got are what we're hearing here about how they love, like they get to learn, they get to solve problems, they get to learn about people. And that's what really kind of gave me the final push.
So I am a researcher, quite literally. I actually did human subject research in college, and also just like almost all of my job has required a lot of research. So I like dug into it. It was like my job for a couple of months was like, do I do this thing or don't I do this thing? And I think it was a lot of what other people have said. It was like, what is the return on investment, right? Because a lot of coding programs, if you look at it and you're just looking at cost number, like that could be really intense. Like that's a lot of money for 6 months. But then I looked at like, well, what is the ROI? What are these jobs typically making? And I knew that, and now I've already made, I'm very open and transparent. I'm the chair on our diversity and equity and inclusion board, and I'm really open and transparent about finances and what I personally make as a salary. I'm not going to share that right now, but I will tell you that I'm already making over $30,000 more than what I was, and I'm only a year and 2 months out of my program. So, like, again, return on investment has already been twofold. So like that was like a lot of it. And then I was like, well, what are the things that are offered at these different programs? So once I was like, I'm going to do this, I started by doing like smaller coding programs that were free. And then when I looked into a boot camp, it was like, what does Prime have over what Software Guild has, over what App Academy has? And like the one thing that personally drove me towards Prime is like the connections that they have with so many other organizations and the opportunities. And like Christy is amazing. Love Christy so much. And like, I was like, okay, so also my career is actually going to move forward. It's not like somebody's just like going to hand me a skill set. Hey, when you're in school, like do the research on like when you're going to break into tech is like, what is a program offering you? Can you do this stuff on your own? Like I've done some outside learning, and like career like help was like a number one for me. Is I was like, cool, they're like going to teach me this. Like I'm going to have like an actual college life instructor who's like going to be willing to help me and work with me one-on-one. Like the instructors are great. And like, that's like, no matter whether you go to Prime or not, go to Prime. But like having those other things, like those additional things that really made the environment feel like an educational space, like similar to like a college experience, were all of those outside things. And so really look into like, if those things work for you, because I personally am like a huge advocate of doing this over like breaking into tech and doing like a 4-year or 2-year degree. I digress. That was a lot of information. I'll let somebody else speak now.
I appreciate that, Jaden. I think one of the things that we always, even at Prime, right, we always encourage people to look at other programs because these types of learning environments aren't for everyone, right? And not everyone thrives in these types of environments. And you all have been through the gauntlet of Prime and the intensity and how many hours you put into it and the time commitment and the amount of outside support that was required. So I love the fact that you did research and that you kind of dug into, because again, you have to find what works for you, right? And these types of programs, or Prime, for example, doesn't work for everyone. So I think that's super important to keep in mind when you're looking at programs. And it's a time commitment. It's a lot of money, right? And you definitely have to, as many of you found out, you have to be committed to in order to get through it, even because it is a lot of time and and it's very intense. So I love that you did that. Peter or Ion, you want to share?
Yeah, I could go. So I think for me, something that was really helpful was knowing somebody who successfully like went through the program and started a career. So I know that really helped me like finalize my decision. I had some downtime between my last role, and I was just thinking about what I wanted to do like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I wanted to keep helping people and do meaningful work, but I was also willing to, put on a different hat and do it in a different way. And so Prime, like I think that year I tried applying a few times, but then finally there was just like an opportunity window and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. And then that year that I did it, I had a number of people waiting for me to finish the program. So that was the first, I don't know, milestone they were waiting for. And then the second milestone was starting a full-time role. And so when that happened, I'm not sure the number, but I think I helped maybe get a few more people in Prime, and I'm helping someone with their application this weekend. And so it's something that it is a life-changing opportunity, and it's a really great environment to be able to learn in and to, build a community. I think that's the best resource that I can tell people, with other boot camps and other programs. There's a lot of bonuses, but I think the best thing about Prime is the community of people, the lifelong community you get afterwards. And then the other part for me was when I was considering UX and the work that I've done and I'm still doing with community organizing. I've had some maybe not so positive experiences with tech from the position of like a community organizer. And so I wanted to be able to bring some new ideas and I think have that that lens that I could bring to the table when it comes to working with vulnerable communities or making sure that the tech is ultimately positive and beneficial and not harmful. And so there were these things that I was juggling in my mind, but ultimately I don't know, I felt like the opportunity kind of lined up and I was like, I got to go for it. And it was, one of the best decisions I've made. And so, anytime Christy or anyone pulls me in to do something, I'm like, yeah, I could talk about Prime all day. Let's go. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can go now. So first, I got like a friend that also graduated from this program that kind of sealed the deal for me because when he was also doing a career change and I was also contemplating whether I should do that or not. And being in that pretty much that situation is pretty difficult because one is that I've spent so much time in being a chemist and, I should just climb up, right? But I felt like, there's an expression, there's like, people say it's YOLO. I call it yo-yo now because it's you only young once, right? So I saved a lot of money and I just pretty much swan dived into this program that gets you to create web applications for real life clients. At the end of this program, you're able to create like an application that you can present to an actual client. So that actually sealed the deal for me. It's that I can have something that I can put on my resume that I can now showcase to venture in and get into this tech field. But all in all, I feel like big resources that I got was from my friend, because he is actually a mentor for me as well. So yeah.
Okay, so yo-yo is definitely being inputted in some of the talks that I give. I love it, Peter. Thank you for that. That's my big win and big takeaway of the day. So next question that I have, and of course, audience that is here with us, this is not about me. This is about you all. So feel free to chime in. But the next question that I have is, I think, super important, and things you probably have figured out being inside your roles that maybe you weren't sure of until you got into those spaces. But what are some of the big soft skills that you have learned have been required, and maybe even some of the tech skills that you've learned are important in the roles that you're doing now, tech or design skills that you feel are important in the work that you're doing now? I think I look at more, some of the soft skills that you're using that maybe are transferable. Roxy, do you want to start, since you've been very open about kind of the experiences that you've brought with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the most important soft skills are just humility and being able to, not be okay with not knowing, coming into a role, especially because a lot of people that are people like me that kind of changed careers a little bit later. It's hard to go from being a manager of something and then to an entry level something. But the best part about UX for me is that it's changing so much that there's not a lot of experts out there, because we all have to keep learning so often. And so what I loved about getting started in my role is that I was okay, I don't know everything. I don't know a lot actually, but I know how to learn it and I know how to research for it. And so as long as you're okay with that, okay with not, having all the answers, I think that makes a huge difference in being someone that people love to work with and being someone that can just kind of be okay with the ambiguity. For the kind of firm skills, storytelling, public speaking, these are all things that I crafted at Prime when I was there, and just learning the basics of these tools. Even if you're going into research and you're not going to be using design tools that often or at all, it's really important to know how they work so that you can have that empathy with your design partners and other people you work with.
I can chime in here. I think the most important thing is to be able, remember and be able to treat your coworkers, clients, everybody like they're a human being. That's a skill that's super undervalued. Because, if somebody has a rudimentary understanding of coding or design or whatever, they can totally learn those technical skills on a job if they're doing it 40 hours a week, every single week. But people can't always be taught to be a decent person. So that's my number one thing, I guess. Communication's really up there too, but just, being a decent person. That's my number one tip.
I can go next. Like I said before, people management and project management has been a skill that was really easy to transfer into this world. Problem solving was something I did prior to this. And so if you like problem solving, you're really going to like coding. And I think similar to what Aaron said is totally just lost my train of thought. We're not going to go there, apparently. But also with something that Aaron did say is empathy and just like being a good human, especially who's somebody who's on the technical side of things. Like in software engineering and in data, we are like very rigid, like what we want and what is there is what is expected. And like sometimes like I think that that's one thing that I brought with me that I like, even it's really helpful for my team members to know, is like I came from the other side of it, doing the people-centered work. So like as a software engineer, to have that like empathetic side is like not something that's typical. So I think that that's really helped me excel in my position. And then also just like learning to learn effectively is like probably like, again, something that Prime really taught me. Like I'm lifelong education will always be part of my life, but really like effectively being able to learn things. Like if you have those soft skills, the technical skills you can learn if you like to.
Yeah, I echo everything that everyone said. I think the other side of that is having those skills, but then also working at a place that values those things with you. So being able to work in an environment where you know you're allowed to learn, you're allowed to make mistakes, you're encouraged to explore and challenge yourself is something that's really, really important if you know, if you want to keep building and growing yourself in your career. And I think also you know, working at a place that has that work-life balance, that values you as a person, remembers that you're, you know, a human being and you're not a robot is really, really important. And I think being in those environments are really helpful to your growth because, you know, you're really able to focus on those skills of problem solving, of, you know, treating other people well and treating yourself well, as, you know, and being able to give yourself a break and cut yourself some slack and, you know, keep working on what it is that you're working on. I think if you're somebody who enjoys problem solving, you're creative, and you know, and you can work on those skills as well, and you can also work on being a great person and being somebody really awesome to work with, being a team player. I think you'll find a role anywhere, and I think you'll find there are a lot of great teams and great people who share those values and skills and can make for a really exciting career doing good work. So yeah, I think just focusing on those skills yourself, building them, but then also being maybe selective or maybe being intentional, I would say. Let's say intentional about going places where those skills are fostered.
Yeah, key thing what I like about being in this tech industry is that you're allowed to not know things. Like you can say, I don't know, you can say, I need help, because essentially if like once you've asked other people for help, that's how you improve as a software engineer. Is you need to understand your weaknesses and also communicate with other people so then, you know, you can be a better software engineer. Like I was in the pre-med route. I don't think I can say I don't know a lot. But with this industry, with how technology has always been improving and evolving, that you have to, there's not a lot of things that you would know. So that's pretty much what I like about it. Soft skills, definitely team-oriented and accountability are key things that you need, which can translate over to, you know, from any careers that, you know, other career paths that you have. Like for me, being a chemist, that definitely translates over to being a software engineer. So
I just want to add something quick as we're talking about breaking into tech, and I know that I've pushed and what we're all here from Prime Digital, but like the one thing I want to say is like, I was so glad that you said that, Peter, is like, you don't have to know everything. And I think as somebody who's similar to Roxy, went from being in a management position going into tech, like I was like, I need to know it all. And like not knowing it was frustrating, but like that is part of tech. You actually can get into tech without ever going to a boot camp. Like there are so many positions, even at my company, we super value people learning on their own. And like we have a position called like a support engineer. And like there are like lots of roles like that, especially at startup companies, where you can start in like maybe a customer focused like role and then move your way into tech. So I just like really want to highlight that you don't have to do necessarily all that we've all are Prime graduates, but like you can break into tech in like so many different ways. And like right now is like totally like the environment to do it in. Like 2020 did a lot of good things that like allowed people to take those steps. So like if you're thinking about doing it, like you don't have to know everything or anything really when you begin.
Also haven't met any software engineers that never Googled anything. So they always Google something.
Yes, absolutely. You are an expert Googler as a software engineer, hands down. And I love that, Jaden, because I agree wholeheartedly. There are so many really awesome opportunities in tech and design that, you know, will, and so many companies in regards to what Ion was saying, that will level you up, right? That will get you a foot in the door and get you some of that experience. But not only that, but help train you in some of those spaces. And I think that's so amazing and so valued. And also retention is huge at that point, right? If you have an opportunity to learn and grow in your organization, you're gonna stay longer. And you know, we found that quite a bit as well. So that leads me to my next question, which is there's always a win or an aha or a yay, I did this thing and it's actually right for me. Can you share kind of what your first win was, besides of course landing your first job, what your first win was that in your head said, yep, I did the right, this is the right move, I did this is the right thing for me?
I can go. So my first win when I was in school was when we were moderating interviews or usability sessions for the first time. And they were telling us, like, if they're not talking, don't lead them, like, just be quiet. And I was like, oh, I can just not talk and wait for them to keep talking. Yeah, 100%. Like, I can do that. I've done a lot of employee interviews over the years. And so I was super comfortable in that setting. And I felt that it was a right choice for me. And then at work, when we were first in the lab doing usability sessions, I'd only been there a week and a half, but I moderated 3 sessions one day, and I got a lot of good feedback from my supervisor. And so I knew that I had made the right choice.
I can go. My first win, I guess, was like pretty early at Prime. I was still like, oh dang, like, okay. So my experience first week on campus, right? We get put in little pods of 3 or 4 people. And 2 of the 3 people I was sitting next to had been like coding casually since like middle school. And here's me who is, you know, I did a little bit of light coding in the MySpace days, you know, making a cool MySpace. But that was it. And that was a very long time ago. So that first week, I just thought that I was like not very bright, like not getting it quick. But, you know, eventually I realized, oh, those people just have a lot more prior experience than me. But my first big win was I'm that kind of person that I guess I need to like do things on my own, you know, like come up with just a wild idea and then do it. And I'm like, okay, so I know virtually nothing about coding. I want to make a randomized, abstract, generative pixel art generator thing. So then I did, and it wasn't like super pretty, but I made a thing. The user can select, you know, a color palette, they click generate, it goes through like 50 iterations, boom, 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 and then spits out a bunch of different color boxes inside of a bigger box. And I was like, okay, I feel a lot more confident and comfortable now. So I don't know, it wasn't like on the job or anything. It was pretty early in Prime, and I was like, this is super fun, and I can totally do this.
So obviously I had a lot of first like wins on understanding things in Prime. I'm actually going to talk about one very recently, as in like a project I'm currently working on. So I just moved into the junior data scientist role about a month and a half ago, and I am doing my biggest project right now. That is one of the biggest projects for our company. So we have like a table that essentially just has a ridiculous amount of data. It is our largest table. It takes up about 90% of our database. And I am working on a project right now, and I had to learn Amazon, like AWS services, S3, Kinesis Firehose, and like all of these different things. And I know I'm saying a lot of words that don't make sense. They're irrelevant. But essentially I had to go out and learn all of this new stuff. And like, at first I was not getting it. And like, I think similar to what Peter said earlier, I just had to like tap on one of our senior engineers and be like, I am not understanding this part. Like, I learned JavaScript. You guys are writing Ruby on Rails. I'm not understanding where to like move this. And like, he helped me. Now I've built this pipeline. It's going to reduce our database by like 90%. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting it. I am understanding, like, because, you know, I think imposter syndrome is a real thing. We haven't talked about it yet in this, maybe we will, but like feeling like you're not good enough or you're not adequate. I think that a lot of people struggle with that, especially later in life, bloomers into the tech space. But one of my first wins is literally a project that I'm actively working on. And like, when I finally got it, it was like, oh, I see where the data transformation is happening and where I'm pulling this information to actually go here instead of where it used to go, was like, I'm doing it. I did the right thing. I've got this. So I don't know. They're the first one in my current position.
Yeah, imposter syndrome is super real. So I guess my first one would be we were starting. Well, I guess before then, I think I remember looking somewhere during the pipeline. Like, I'm forgetting when it was, but I remember looking back at the first wireframes I did, and they were so ugly. And I was like, how did I create this? And why are websites so complicated? So I was like feeling a little intimidated. And then eventually we got to doing research. And before I had done a lot of research. I did research in college. I did research in my previous roles. And I did a lot of research for my book that's coming out in November. So a little plug there. And so I knew I knew research, but it was still super intimidating to do research in a UX setting and, you know, asking all these questions. And so we went in, and I think I was maybe one of the first people to do it. And I went in and I nailed it. Got good feedback. And I felt super confident. I was like, yeah, I can do this. And then I think with my first full-time role, it was pretty early on in my role that I basically somehow got, you know, the opportunity, if you could see it, to work on two different tools that I had never used before. So I was learning two things simultaneously, like hopping between tutorial and like actually doing it. And I was like, you know, maybe a couple days into it, I was wondering, how am I going to do this? This is a lot all at once. But I just kind of kept my head down, and I just was like, you know, I'm learning, so I can make mistakes. It's cool. Just keep going. And eventually, you know, I think I just worked really hard on it. And by the end of it, it was two different breakoff points. I had finished like pretty much designing a website and using a new tool at the same time. And so when I did that, I was like, oh, I can do anything, you know, like I can just apply myself. I can learn a new tool. It's possible, you know, it's just like, you have to get over the fear and like the fear of making mistakes and like failing and not looking good at what you're doing, and just be okay not being good at it for a while. And eventually you kind of like pick up those skills. And so, yeah, those wins stay with me, and it reminds me to just keep trying new things, keep, you know, pushing myself and exploring and expanding my skills in, you know, whatever format that is.
See, for me, my biggest win is overseeing a project at my company from start to finish. It took like 3 months or so, but I developed in the back end and in the front end as well. And this is a full-fledged application for the company. Compared that to like how I started out with like just writing and building a basic website, I felt like that's the biggest accomplishment for me of all. But not only that, but being in a position where I'm able to be trusted with this project and being able to communicate with other teams, and also being asked about like how to come up with the best solutions for the application is definitely rewarding for me. That's the point. That's like, oh, okay, I made it now. So.
These make my heart sing because I knew y'all before you were these big famous people. But you're right. And that's why we celebrate those small wins, right? Because that imposter syndrome can very quickly take over if we don't look back and see how far we've come. And even a small little win is a big win in a lot of our books. So before you were panelists, yes. Also, Roxy, just love the Silicon Valley reference there. That is absolutely the truth. What's up, Paul? Okay, so I have one last question, and then I'm hoping that we have an audience question or two. My next question and last question is, any last pieces of advice for folks that are thinking, and we've touched on a few of these, but for folks who are thinking about changing careers into, or maybe starting a career in tech or design?
I don't have any like super great groundbreaking advice, but I will say that quitting my job, being super nervous I wouldn't be able to find a job after taking a loan out for a program was very nerve-wracking. But in the end, like, you find a job, you end up, you know, it might not be the first or even the second company you're at, but you'll end up at a place that fits really great with you. And, you know, in a role that's fulfilling and, you know, all those things. And it absolutely changed my life completely. I was a very, very poor person before, and now I feel like I can live comfortably and I don't have to worry about finances or housing or any of those things. And it's really great. So just my personal experiences, I think if you're considering going into, you know, UX or design or coding, programming, any of those types of things, do it. I don't know. I could talk about Prime Digital Academy all day too, but find a place that's right for you. Learn on your own, however you want to do it.
Yeah, I would say if you're like me, I thought about it for a really long time. I think I started my application and then finished it a year later. So I wish I would have just not have been afraid of the application. Like I was like, oh, I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm just going to keep pushing it out. It's really not that bad. Just finish it and submit it and figure it out later. Yeah, so just get into it as soon as you can. Whenever you're thinking of it, you can make the decision as, you know, you go through the interview or anything like that. Or even if you decide not to go to an immersive program, just talk to people that are in the field. And don't think that there's like a specific person you have to be to get into tech. It's really like the job you have now. I guarantee if you ask Christy, I guarantee if you ask Christy if there's anyone who's had your job, she will say yes. There has been like every type of career person that's gone through Prime. Just really don't be afraid. And yeah, I'm with you, Aaron. Like I'm at the point where like my husband might not have to work much more. And so I'm very, very thankful for the opportunity I had.
I would say that best advice would be find something that aligns with what you currently do. Like, so whether that's you want to go into full stack or you want to go into UX or whatever area. And again, there are so many different, you can be in tech and not do anything technical at all. But like find something that aligns, because if you're just like, and not to say that you can't force it on yourself to do something you don't like, but like if you're going to make a change, do something you're passionate about, and know that also in tech that probably exists, whether it's like you want to work in accessibility services or you want to work in the data side of things, or you're like really passionate about, I don't know, business to business ventures, like, or really passionate about like as Peter was a chemist before, like you can go, like there are all sorts of different areas in tech you can go, but just like do something you're passionate about and find that before you like invest I guess a ton of time. And I know that's a little bit countering what you're asking, but yeah, like find something you're passionate about and know that you're going to be passionate about it, because if you're going to switch careers, like I don't plan on changing careers again in my life. I'm in my 30s, and so like if I had to do something all over again, that wouldn't be great. So I found something that could align. with my passions. And like Ion said earlier, like I can do both the data side of thing, which research comes from before, and then I'm also like the chair of equity, inclusion, and diversity. So I've pushed that initiative at my company, and now it's like this big blossoming committee, and there's a board, and so like you can find those spaces too. So just don't lose your values in whatever you decide, because you don't need to.
I guess I would add that, you know, you don't need permission to get into tech. There's, you know, the role that you're looking for is out there, and the company you want to work for is probably out there too. And if it's not, you know, you can build it, you can create that. And so there's a lot of opportunity out here, and there's also a lot of people that want to see you win. And so I think one of the best things about the Minnesota and just the Twin Cities and just is the community out here, and you know, the people that you can talk to, and you know, apply a bit of design thinking and talk to them and ask them, you know, what does your day-to-day look like? What does your life look like? And think about for yourself the future that you want to build, and you know, and start working towards that, you know, and in whatever way that looks like. So yeah, so don't wait for permission. Don't wait for a blessing. If you don't look like it, you can still be it, whatever you think that is. So just, you know, take a chance on yourself. So.
Yeah, man, I feel like Nike's gonna sue me for this, but just do it, right? All it takes is just spending so much time, spending the time in coding. It's hard not to be passionate about something if you spend that much time in it, right? And if you spend that much time in it and you find out that's not right for you, then that's good worth of time. Essentially, I feel like finding a mentor also helps as well. Help you grow, help you like coach your way, and give you that emotional support that you needed if you do like a career transition. But all in all, I feel like today's day and age, we're given so much technology, everything's open source, that is kind of like you got like an open candy store, and you gotta just, you know, take a lick on it, right? You gotta taste all the technology. I mean, you got all the information you need on the web, and you got to you know, be curious about it and use it. Otherwise, you'll you know, you won't continue to stay relevant in this world. That's how I feel. But all in all, I felt like technology is always growing, and kids are picking up on these technologies, and I feel like you should too. So.
Because yo-yo, you're only young once. I like your candy store reference. Okay, so we did have a question come in, which everybody knows how much I love questions. So question is, did you find that opportunities for learning new things, tech, design skills, whatever it might be, and career growth have happened naturally on the job, or have you needed to spend your own time making sure you're progressing professionally?
It's all happened on the job for the most part. I don't know. I feel challenged every day. There's always new things. I guess backstory, I do a lot of website designs for clients. Sometimes I smash some APIs together on the back end to, you know, get data all consolidated into one place. I made an app one time in technology that we generally don't use at my employer. But yeah, it's just so many things. And if I ever feel like I'm stagnated or bored, which I hope won't happen, you know, there's other places and other opportunities, or like Ion said, you can just make it, you know, build your own thing. So yeah, I think on the job, lots of challenges.
Yeah, I would say learning and development is a huge priority for our team. We talk about it every quarter with a one-on-one with your manager. We talk about what you want to learn, and then they help you Like I wanted to learn about different methods. And so my manager paired me with another researcher who had experience at Instagram and Google. And he's like, okay, he's been through the ropes of all this. He can teach you. And so then just making sure there's all this accountability about accomplishing your goals. It's not just like just for talk. So definitely been on the job.
I guess I don't know a tech company that doesn't value, not that we've only been in this for so long, but I think that a tech company that doesn't value like learning and growth on the job is probably not one I would want to be at, because that would mean they weren't ever advancing their product. And that's not something I want to be part of. So I would say that like, yeah, it's a lot of like on the job. My job actually has it's built into my day that I have 2 hours a day. Not every company will be this way. And that's especially as I'm like learning I'm actually moving into my role, learning the role. So like a lot of companies will do that if you're at startups. But I have built-in time, like the first 2 hours of my day are just that I am doing or learning some technology. So like a lot of companies will do that or have like Fridays off. My mentor, her company, they didn't work on Fridays. They had a 32-hour work week and 8 hours for development on Friday. And there are a lot of companies that do half days or full days of work, or like conferences will be included. So a lot of this stuff you're kind of just going to learn. And like everybody said, you're an expert Googler. So you're just like learning as you're going. And any developer who just says they know it all, that's just not true. You just can't, because it's just moving so fast. So that's my input.
Yeah, I will add to that when I started as a contract worker, it can be a little bit challenging. They kind of expect sometimes for you to do that on your own time. But I had a manager that was like, no, we still want you to learn, even though it's not technically what a contractor is supposed to do. They still want the best for you. So it depends. Just talk with the hiring manager or the recruiter.
Love that. Okay, we had one more question come through and we have 2 minutes. So we're going to need some quick answers on this one. And Ion, you're going to start. Okay. All right. So question is, what was an unexpected challenge that you experienced after starting your first job?
Great question. And I'll speed around it really fast. So I would say working at an agency, having a ton of different projects and a ton of different clients was something I wasn't used to. I'm used to having a number of projects, but they all relate in some way. So I had to learn how to move fast between things and manage different projects and different clients. And I had to kind of create my own cadence. And I work at a really great place, and at Software for Good, I basically had a conversation and basically figured out like a way for my schedule, like for it to work, that I could work on certain things and I could break it up a little bit. So yeah, and so, yeah, Matt, Software for Good rocks.
I'll say, so when I was in school, I learned how to do research, and when I got to work, we started hearing like, oh, we don't want to do that research, or like, this isn't a good example of a time that we should do research. So kind of like not being able to use the skills I just learned was really hard, and learning to know like, when is it a good time to use that method, or is this a good use of our time? That was a challenge to learn, but that's kind of just comes with the territory. So.
Challenge, unexpected challenge. Like having to remember the like 192.168.whatever addresses for like 10 different remote desktop server thingies that all had different tools that I had to use on the job. I don't even remember the name of half the tools at this point. It was a big challenge. And also realizing as I was learning Perl programming language that all the code looks like it was written by different people. And then being able to read that code and interpret what it's doing, that was way harder than I expected on the job.
I'd say unexpected challenge is pretty much coming up with questions to ask. Owning the things that you don't know is kind of hard. in a place where you should know a bunch of things in the tech industry. But I felt like that's pretty much an assessment of what you don't know, do and don't know.
Probably biggest challenge I think is similar to Peter was like being able to know when to ask for help and when I need to need a better way to effectively learn whatever it is I'm doing. So that was probably my